Welcome to our video on Paper 2 Question 5, Persuasive Writing, how to plan and write your response. This is a 45-minute questions, 40 marks. 24 of those marks are given over for a convincing argument and clear logical structure, and 16 marks are given over for spelling, punctuation and grammar. It's the same 16 mark scheme as you'd get on Paper 1 Question 5, but of course the mark schemes for the rest of the questions do change. Please make sure that you plan first. You are marked on the overall quality of communication and clarity of communication, which is important than any other specific single skill in the mark scheme. If your work is not quality and you're not clearly communicating, then I'm afraid it's not going to achieve what it wants. And you can't do that if you're making it up as you go along. It is the final question for GCSE English. So give it all you've got. Take your time with it, be confident, make sure that you hit your mark scheme and you're revising what you have to do for your mark scheme, which is, of course, a part of this video. Make sure you break down the question for planning. You'll always get your statement first and the answer is always in the question, always. So cars are noisy, dirty, smelly and downright dangerous. They should be banned from all town and city centres, allowing people to walk and cycle in peace. Write a letter to your minister for transport, arguing your point of view on this statement. So the first bit is your controversial statement. The second bit will tell you how they want you to construct your response. It might be a letter, a speech, an article. It could be a leaflet or an essay, but we've never seen them. And they are very similar to writing an article anyway in terms of a heading and the paragraphing. And your writing should always be formal, not informal for question 5. So we've got cars are noisy, dirty, smelly and dangerous. There's 4 things about cars. And then we have our point. They should be banned from all towns and city centres. And then our pluses, if they are seen as negatives, people can walk and cycle in peace. So we can take 6 elements of the quote, 6 elements out of the quote there from the controversial question. And then each one of those could be a paragraph. So automatically, we've got 6 paragraphs with an introduction and a conclusion. Should we want to lay our plan out that way, it may not work that way, or we may not feel like we need to lay it out that way. But basically, this question allows us at least an 8 paragraph structure straight away. So key strategies here. Make sure you are communicating clearly and effectively. Make sure you have a clear logical structure to your argument. You are linking and developing your ideas as you go. They are not random. They are brought in with discourse markers. Discourse markers are linking words. So firstly, secondly, thirdly, however, therefore, thereas. Make sure you use a good range of vocabulary, clear, accurate use, as well as trying some complex vocabulary, some trickier spellings. Make sure you're using linguistic devices for effect. We could talk about persuasive language features of the forest or fat horse as well to might help you with that. Make sure you're engaging and convincing. Convincing is your top band, so try to convince about the maturity of your argument and keep a sustained tone all the way through. And for you, that should be formal English language for a start. Things to avoid in this question: failing to offer a clearly identifiable argument, a ramble, an ill-judged or ill-planned ramble. It's not clear, it's a bit of a muddle, and it's not well thought out or explored. Make sure that you are using appropriate linguistic devices. Don't overcomplicate it by trying to do too much. 2 to 3 sides is absolutely perfect. Make sure that you have a clear logical structure and you don't just use, for punctuation, full stops and commas. Use a full range of punctuation, please. Don't have your sentences very boringly roughly the same length. Have some long, some short, some minor. Try and mix it up a bit to show your craft and effect. And make sure that you are using complex spellings. And to do that, if you're not too sure, please feel free to explore your sources again and check your spellings of any complex vocabulary in there. Plan before you write up. You cannot make this up as you go along, and make sure that and hit the mark scheme and make sure you do as you go. This is going to take some planning. So have a clear introduction, a clear conclusion, clear key points that you want to make in the middle, and you can take those straight out of the question. The question will help you answer the question. It has been set out that way. So you could start with an initial paragraph, an introduction, where you're summing up your argument, and then a clear development of ideas in paragraph 1, 2, and 3. As you move through your argument in the depth of it, you can get to the conclusion, where you can talk about the big ideas. What's the moral of the message? What's the big idea that you want to leave the readers with? And you could possibly do that by linking back to the beginning in more of a cyclical structure. Another way to set your piece out is looking like this. So we have your introduction. State your overall opinion. I am for it, I am against it. And repeat the question to show that you understand what you're for or against. If you repeat it in your question, you may even get lucky and have some complex vocabulary in there. And then, of course, that's hitting some of your SPAG mark as well. And then use discourse markers to link your paragraphs in a clearly ordered fashion. Firstly, secondly, thirdly, however, therefore, whereas. And then you already should have planned good points and bad points by now to find out your thoughts overall of the subject. So you might want to ask for advice on the counter argument, or give advice, on the counter argument. This shows that you're balanced, so you're not being biased for one side or the other. But go back to your central argument to sum up your piece, whether you use also, finally, but you should definitely use in conclusion. Tell your audience that you are summing up your argument. And you can do that by repeating the introduction. So as part of your planning, maybe write a single sentence which will help you summarize what it's all about. And then you can head your response towards it in that direction. Make sure you keep and sustain a tone throughout, and it should be formal. But if you're trying to bring in irony or humor, that's okay. But make sure you get it right and it's specific to the subject that you're talking about. Make sure that you don't have to, make sure you realize you don't have to cover all parts of the question, but the answer is in the question. So the more you do, or the more you allow yourself to look at the question and pull out the key words and terms, the better your answer will be and the less vague it will be as you go. Use a wide range of punctuation, a wide range of sentence forms, some minor, some short, some rhetorical questions, for instance. Make sure you use a range of punctuation and complex vocabulary to help you explore your argument. Some good things from the examiner's report. Students responded to the theme of the writing task with enthusiasm and confidence. Make sure that your enthusiasm and confidence comes through. It makes your argument much more convincing, and convincing is the top mark. Make sure that you use a range of linguistic devices, language features, structural features. Don't just repeat the same ones all the time. You may use Fat Horse or DeForest for persuasive language techniques. That's absolutely brilliant. But make sure you do engage with the big ideas, abstract ideas behind your own perspectives of the subject. All good writers will do it. It will embed depth into your work, and it will make your work more convincing and get you much higher grade overall because of it. Things that they didn't like was badly structured arguments, not linking paragraphs or too random or made up as they were going along. Some students are still writing too much. So technical accuracy and a good, clear, logical, structured argument can be done in 2 to 3 slides maximum. You don't need to do more than that. Don't try and fit in complex vocabulary if you don't know what the words mean. Stick to using more simplistic vocabulary if you're overreaching. If we look at the 2 elements of our mark scheme, we have content and organization as the first half of your mark scheme. And content is your argument, organization is your structure, making sure it has a clear logical order of events, a sequencing of events from introduction through your paragraphs to your conclusion. So we've got to make sure, please, that your work is consistently clear, that your tone is consistent throughout. It's formal language matched to the audience that you're talking to, and that will be in the question. With increasingly sophisticated phrasing and structure of your vocabulary, making sure that you use coherent paragraphs and linking words as you go. Second part of our mark scheme is SPAG, spelling, punctuation and grammar. So sentences are secure and accurate, range of punctuation is used, a variety of sentence forms for effect, and making sure you use accurate spelling and sophisticated vocabulary where possible. So if we go back to the beginning of our mark scheme, paper 2, question 5, persuasive writing. We are looking at 45 minutes for 40 marks. Plan it first. You are marked on the quality of your answer. So know the mark scheme. Break down the question because the answer is in the mark scheme so that you can answer it fully, logically, clearly, emotively, and intelligently.